Good evening. Welcome to Crawley Borough Council's Planning Committee meeting. I'm Councillor Pritchard, Chair of the committee. There are no scheduled fire drills tonight, so in the event of a fire alarm, please leave the building via the spiral staircase and the main reception door. Once outside, turn left and go to the fire assembly point on Exchange Road. If you're unable to use the stairs, you will be guided by a member of staff to the evacuation lift. This meeting is being live streamed via the Council's YouTube channel. Please note there is no comment function available. The Council is the data controller and will retain the data collected during the webcast. This will be done in accordance with the Council's published data retention policy. Anyone seated in the public gallery should be aware that by entering the room you are consenting to your image being captured by the automated camera system. Recordings will be used for webcasting or training purposes. The meeting agenda is available on the Council website. Around these tables sit the committee members who will be taking decisions on the items before them. Officers of the Council are also in attendance, and I'll invite them to introduce themselves now.
Good evening, I'm Jess Tamplin, Democratic Services Officer.
Good evening, I'm Siraj Chowdhury, Head of Governance.
Good evening, I'm Clem Smith, I'm the Head of Economy and Planning.
Good evening, Hamish Walk, Acting Group Manager for Development Management.
And Kate Curick, Senior Transport Planner at West Sussex County Council.
We've received apologies from Councillor Burgess. Are there any further apologies? We will now take items 2 and 3 together. I will call upon committee members to declare any interests or lobbying in relation to any of the items. Please also declare if you've visited any of the sites. Councillor Abu-Musa.
Thank you, Chair. No declaration of interest. I haven't visited any site. I haven't been lobbied. Thank you.
Councillor Adonai.
I have not visited any of the sites. I have no interest to declare. I have not been lobbied by any of the sites that I mentioned. Thank you.
Councillor Bidwell.
Good evening. Yeah, I haven't been lobbied on any of them. I haven't visited the site and have no interest to declare.
Councillor Chariton.
No, I have no interest to declare. I have no interest to declare. I haven't been lobbied. I have fairly frequently visited the Crawley Leisure Park, item 5, but I have not visited the Innovation Centre, item 6. Thank you.
Councillor Jaggard.
Good evening. I've not been lobbied. I have no interest to declare. When the applications came before us on previous occasions, I visited both of the sites.
Okay. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. I've got no interest to declare. I've not been lobbied and I've not visited any sites.
Councillor Mullins.
Good evening. I have no interest to declare. I haven't been lobbied and I haven't visited any of the sites.
Councillor Magali. Councillor Mullins, can you turn your mic off, please?
Sorry.
Thank you. Good evening. I've not been lobbied. I have no interest to declare and I've not visited the site. Thank you.
Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you, Chair. I believe I've been lobbied on item number 5 through the email in the past, but no interest to declare to start with. Sorry about that. But I've been lobbied on item number 5, and item number 6. Being a cabinet member, I've been heavily involved with the Innovation Centre, but still no personal interest. So in that sense, if you class as lobby, yes. Thank you.
And Councillor Yarley, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have no declaration of interest. I have not been lobbied and I have not visited the sites.
And for myself, I have not been lobbied. I have no interest in either of the sites, but I have visited both of them. Councillor Nawaz.
Just want to add, I have visited the sites many times.
I think one of the sites most of us have visited on a regular basis. So now we come to the minutes of the last meeting held on the 11th of March 2025. Does the committee agree that the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting? Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. We'll now move on to agenda item 5, CR 20230242 FUL, Unit 3, Crawley Leisure Park, London Road, West Green, Crawley. Please can the Planning Officer introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. You will obviously recall that you saw this application a couple of meetings ago. So what I'll do is just run through the changes that have happened since that time rather than going through the whole thing again. There are a couple of changes to conditions. Both the construction management plan and the material schedule have been agreed by officers or in fact by West Sussex as well. So there's an amendment to condition 4 that rather than requiring a construction management plan to be submitted, it simply requires its implementation. And similarly with condition 7, rather than requiring a material schedule, that has been submitted. So it's simply a condition requiring implementation of that, of the development in accordance with the materials that have been agreed. So that's two slight changes to the recommendation. Just to refresh your minds, that is Unit 3 on the leisure park. One of the critical issues is obviously the car park that we discussed last time. So a couple of images there showing on the left-hand side the ground floor entrance to the car park. And on the right-hand side, the entrance to the upper floors of the car park, which is, as you can see on the left-hand slide, is actually round to the side of the car park. It's not accessible through the ground floor. So hopefully that reminds you of what we saw last time. As you know, the application was deferred at the February meeting, and that was to allow further discussions between officers and the applicant on parking and sustainable travel matters, both of which you expressed range of concerns about. There's some more. So the right-hand photo there shows you the route you would go down to get to the current ramp to the upper floors. So you will recall there was an apparent contradiction between the applicant's parking surveys, which showed around 200, in fact I think generally over 200 parking spaces being vacant at peak times, and the experience of local people, including committee members and planning officers, of far more congestion being apparent at the site. And surprisingly, it turns out we were actually all right on that. There are around 975 spaces on the car park, including the multi-storey, and the parking survey showed a peak demand of 731 on a Saturday evening. What wasn't apparent at that time was that the upper floors of the multi-storey car park were almost entirely empty. So certainly the site gives the impression of being very congested at ground level, but in fact the upper 2 floors of the multi-storey are almost totally unoccupied even at peak times. In fact, some of the customer parking recorded on the 2nd floor of the car park was actually nil through all the survey work that they did. So I've got some images here, which I don't know how well you can see them. The colours are better on this screen, but hopefully you can make them out clearly enough. So I've got 4 different time periods. In the top left up here, you've got an image of the surface car park on the evening of Friday, the 28th of February. So as you can see, it's very busy. There are cars parked in almost all the spaces there. In the bottom left, you've got the ground floor of the multi-storey. And again, you can see there's a fair number. It's not full, but there are a fair number of cars in there. And then there's quite a contrast to the 2 photos on the right-hand side, which show the upper 2 floors. And I don't think there's a car visible on either of those 2 photos. We've then got some images from the following day in the afternoon, a Saturday afternoon. So you can see there is some parking in the surface car park, but really no parking at all apparent in the multi-storey. The evening of the Saturday, so you saw the Friday before, this is the evening of Saturday, the 1st of March. Again, you see a lot of parking on the surface car park, a reasonable amount of car parking on the ground floor of the multi-storey, and again, next to no parking on the upper floors of the multi-storey. And then the final images are the Sunday afternoon, the following day, when there is really very little parking at all, and it's almost all concentrated in the surface car park. So it's fairly clear that the problem is members of the public simply do not want to, for whatever reason, want to use the upper floors of the multi-storey car park. One of the problems, I think, is the access ramp, which is not visible when you're driving around the surface car park, and it's also not visible whether that ramp is open, and at certain times it has not been open. So you could drive round the side of Unit 3 and then find you can't go up the ramp anyway. The upper floors of the multi-storey have also been the subject of some antisocial behaviour, and I think it would be fair to say the quality of the environment in terms of things like the lighting is not great. So I think those factors have all limited the attractiveness of the upper floors to the public. So we've had some very positive discussions with the applicant since the deferral, and we have a range of sort of measures that are proposed to improve that situation. So you've got a plan showing the 3 levels of the multi-storey car park there. The first thing probably to highlight is the access to the multi-storey car park is to be relocated, and that was something that was previously part of the application, always has been part of the application. But hopefully you can see down here, so you come in here to the ground floor of the multi-storey. Currently you would go along here and then up the ramp there. The ramp is going to be realigned so that it's actually accessed from within the ground floor. So you'd come in through for either floors, you'd come in through the same entrance. You'd then be able to choose whether to go up the ramp to the upper floors or circulate around the ground floor. And obviously would have the opportunity, if you did circulate around the ground floor and it's full, you could then go up to the upper floors. So there's an improvement there in terms of accessibility. And then you can see on the left-hand side a series of other measures. So we're looking at improved signage to show the availability of spaces in the multi-storey car park. Enhanced lift security. In fact, a new lift is due to be provided. The lift is centrally located in the building just there. Enhanced CCTV within the building, and the applicant has also committed to that multi-storey car park being open from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. So you're not going to get the situation of people turning up and being unsure whether it's open or not. It will be open, and I think with the improvements to the environment, it certainly should be more attractive to people to use. In terms of other things that will happen, so I'm not sure which plan this is shown on. That's a more detailed plan which kind of shows you the same things really. So you can see the access around the car park. You can see that's actually a clear image of the new ramp coming in there. But what's also proposed is new signage. So I'll just go to the entrance to the car park. As you come into the car park, there'll be automatic number plate recognition will be installed, which I don't think the car park has at all at the moment. So it will record number plates as drivers come in. Then you can see a green dash just there. That will be a digital sign which will indicate the number of spaces available in the multi-storey car park. So as drivers enter the site, they will know how many spaces are available in the multi-storey. And then moving on, you've got the red line there is other directional signage directing people towards the multi-storey. So I think they're the main changes that are proposed from what you saw before. There are obviously other changes to the parking arrangements, with the current access becoming current access to the upper floors becoming a service yard. But in terms of the changes to encourage people to use the multi-storey car park, hopefully that highlights most things. The other significant change from last time around is that because there was also a discussion about sustainable transport and trying to encourage non-car modes. So the applicant has now agreed to implement a site-wide travel plan. So that will cover staff at all the tenants and operators across the leisure park to encourage their staff to travel more sustainably. In paragraph 2.12 of the report, that sets out the kind of indicative targets from the draft travel plan for what kind of modal shift they're looking to achieve. And obviously West Sussex, if the recommendation is agreed, West Sussex will then monitor that travel plan and hopefully ensure its success. So overall, I think officers are now satisfied that a number of new additional measures have been agreed by the applicant, and that they will significantly improve both the parking situation and the use of more sustainable means of transport. So the recommendation is to approve the application subject to the Section 106 agreement. And it's probably worth highlighting that is changed the things that will be securing is quite substantially extended from the last time we saw the application. But so it'll be subject to that 106 and subject to the conditions in the report, with numbers 4 and 7 being amended, as I said at the start.
Thank you very much. There's one speaker registered in regard to this item. Would Tim Humphreys please come to the microphone? The right-hand button switches the microphone on, and when you start, you'll have 3 minutes. There is a clock up there for your assistance. Okay.
Hi, and good evening. So my name is Tim Humphreys, and I'm one of the agents for this application. As members will be aware, the case under consideration here was previously debated by the committee at the February meeting, where a clear message was given regarding the perception of parking pressures associated with the wider leisure park and the sustainable travel measures being proposed. As a result, the case was deferred to allow time to provide further information that will provide members with more comfort on these points. Aviva investors fully understand the concerns previously raised by the committee and have sought to work proactively with officers of the council since the previous meeting to better clarify the matter and identify achievable improvements to the arrangements at the park to improve the current situation. The further detail provided during this time has demonstrated that the disparity between the technical evidence and public perception regarding parking has arisen as a result of there being a typically poor usage of the parking area on the upper floors of the multi-storey car park. A suite of improvements to the multi-storey car park have therefore been put forward to improve access to this area and better advertise the availability of spaces for visitors to the park. This includes relocating the access to the multi-storey to make it more accessible, improving the environment of the upper floors by adding additional sensor lighting, installation of a new lift and directional signage, and management of the car park by Euro Car Parks, who will operate ANPR cameras and limit visiting to 5 hours at a time. These improvements, which will significantly improve circulation and parking availability around the site, have been discussed with both officers at Crawley Council and West Sussex County Council, who have confirmed their support. With regards to sustainable travel, Aviva investors have listened to the concerns raised that the travel plan would only relate to staff at Unit 3 and are committed to a travel plan that now covers all of the units at the park. This will be managed by a travel plan coordinator who will work with West Sussex Highways for the duration of the plan. These revised measures put forward to the committee have been prepared to positively address the issues raised by members during their initial debate of the application. I therefore hope that the committee is now able to support the officer's recommendation and approve the application tonight, so that Aviva investors are able to proceed with the revitalisation of the site through a multi-million investment and forward-thinking development to secure the long-term economic future of the building that is considered acceptable in terms of all relevant planning considerations. Many thank yous.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the debate. Committee members wishing to speak should raise their hand. The officers will respond to queries one by one. Councillor Jaggard.
Thank you. Really appreciate the amount of work that's gone into this revised plan, and I think it is, shows a substantial improvement on what was there before. I have a couple of questions. I'm really pleased about the CCTV, because I would personally never have parked as a lone female in the multi-storey car park. It was grim. So CCTV is really appreciated. Improvements to the lift is really appreciated. And hopefully that will make residents feel safer using it. My question really is about the signage. I can understand the ANPR as you go in and the little green blob that tells you how many spaces there are in the multi-storey car park. That is on that entrance. Is there also one on the, I'm talking to officers, I guess, on the other London Road entrance? Because I always go in the London Road entrance, and we would need the same sort of signage there. And maybe even on the multi-storey car park itself, saying spaces or 100 spaces available here type of on the signage on the actual building of the multi-storey would be make it very clear then that there are spaces in the multi-storey rather than just that one sign. Can you just clarify that, please?
Yes, so similar signs are proposed on the London road frontage. So you've got an ANPR camera here, and then you've got the digital display over here. I don't think a sign is proposed on the car park, but personally would have thought that signs at the entrance would probably be enough. It covers both entrances once you're in the car park. Clearly, if it's saying 200 spaces are available in the multi-storey car park and everything else looks full, you probably know where you're headed at that point.
Councillor Chariton.
A couple of questions. I heard that lighting was something of an issue. Did we cover that at all? Is there any proposal to improve the lighting, or whatever the problem is with the lighting, to improve it to make it more more attractive? The other thing I was thinking as well is how do you attract people to the multi-storey car park, given the reputation it may already have earned by the sounds of it? How do you make it clear that things have changed, that it is now okay and safe to park in the car park if people had some hesitation around that? What things like painting, repainting, decorating, whatever it takes. I'm not an expert in these things, but things that would attract people back to the car park. I'm not sure who can answer that one, really.
I'm looking at Hamish.
Well, I'll have a go, but Katie can always step in if she thinks there's something to add. In terms of lighting, yes, new lighting is proposed, which I think will be similar to the lighting that's been installed in the Town Hall car park, where the lighting comes on as you move along the floor, so it's kind of sensitive lighting. But that is that's in the Section 106 requirements if you look at the report. In terms of car park attractiveness, I think it's difficult to say that we could do very much through a planning application. I think, personally, I would hope that as people start using it, more and more people realise, oh, you can use it, or they'll tell their friends, and I think word will probably spread. But perhaps the applicant could put up some temporary signage as, when that reopens, to say there have been improvements, new lift, whatever, and perhaps encourage people to start using it. But probably the ramp improvements they'll be clearly visible to people going into the ground floor of the car park, and might encourage people to investigate that as an option. But I think it's limited in terms of what we can actually do to make people use it. All we can do is improve awareness of it.
Okay, for the benefit of people watching us on YouTube and those watching recordings of this meeting, we are aware there is a camera problem with this meeting. We hope you can hear all the speeches being made, but you will notice that the camera is fixed on the top table. I do apologise for this. Councillor Yanni.
Hi. I just asked this question because I think it was one of the objections that Peter had last time about insufficient disabled parking. I was wondering, in light of this, is there insufficient disabled parking? Has that been considered? Sorry if I've missed it.
I think most of the disabled parking is actually in the surface car park. The purple blocks that you can see there and there outside Unit 3 are proposed additional disabled and family parking spaces. So I think there is some additional provision being made. I'm not sure whether there is any parking in the multi-storey car park, but I think it would always be better to have disabled parking spaces closer to the units anyway. So I think they're probably ideally located being there and there in terms of the application site, which is this site here.
Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions, if I may ask. Why changing the layout of the ground? Seems like there's no loss of parking, but I still want to ask, by doing that, will there be a loss of any parking spaces, or how, in terms of driver or passengers or the people who are visiting, their safety is still be maintained on the change of layout side of things? Secondly, I think you mentioned yourself that there are some ASB issues has been spotted within the car park, but it will be shut after 11 p.m. What measures will be taken or has been discussed to avoid that kind of thing happening, like car cruising or any antisocial behaviour after 11 p.m. Because it's not been widely used on second on those two floors. So that's not been discussed in the report, even though you mentioned that it's been reported in the past.
Taking the antisocial behaviour first, I think the hope is that with the car park being a better environment, better managed, so it will have an active car park manager as well, and with people being encouraged onto the upper floors, that probably that problem will solve itself. I think the issue at the moment is that there's a hidden ramp to the upper floors, and there's virtually no car parking taking place up there. So I think anyone who does want to cruise their car around there or whatever is kind of free to do so at the moment, really, if that ramp is open. And I think that's also why the ramp at certain times is not open, is to try and avoid that. So I think bringing it into the car park will enable the car park to operate as a whole a bit better, and also enable it to be better managed, and with the improvements to the environment, hopefully members of the public will start using all floors, and I think that probably will be enough to solve the antisocial behaviour problems that there have been. But obviously the car park managers will have to act on that if that problem does continue. In terms of loss of parking, I'm trying to remember, we did discuss this last time. I've got a feeling there was a loss of something like 70 spaces. I think I'm looking at 78, was it? Yeah. So there is some loss of parking. Now, part of the loss of parking is in what is currently, what will become the service bay for Unit 3, but there is currently public car parking in that area. And that won't happen anymore because you'll get the service vehicles for these 3 units going in. And that is another reason why the ramp needs to change, so that members of the public don't need to drive through that area. So there is some loss of spaces there, but I think it's more than compensated by bringing those sort of 230 or so vacant spaces back into use, or bring them into active use. So hopefully there'll be effectively a net increase in spaces, because some spaces that are currently never used will be hopefully made more attractive and brought back into use.
Just, thank you, Chair. Apology, I wasn't here in last meeting, so that's why I missed that 78 points. That's I can understand. So thank you very much for clarification. Just on the second point on ASB side of things, I know most of the car parks nowadays having those ANPR and barriers put in place. Will this have a front barrier as well when people go in and coming out? Because that might deter some people getting in on coming out, because then if you haven't paid or not been recorded, because it's after 11 p.m. it will not be working, so that will not open anyway in terms of operations. So how you can stop people going on there?
I don't think any barrier is proposed. Certainly no barrier is proposed at the entrances to the site, which is where the ANPR cameras are. So I think the reliance will be on those cameras being sufficient deterrent, because obviously number plates will be recorded as people enter the site. So I think rather than barriers, but the applicant has said the multi-storey will be open from 11 to 11. So presumably at 11 a barrier will be put in place by the car park managers so after that time you won't be able to drive in there and go up to the multi-storey car park.
Thank you. I think a clarification on that, or something needs to be in place over there, because this will be a barrier to antisocial behaviour on that if it's going to be shut after 11 p.m. Because we have noticed some of the car parks which are available to people, which has not been controlled by that. Car cruising is quite common in few of them, like Sainsbury or others, and Morrison's, which didn't have anything, but it's quite common on those. So we don't want to create another problem for within the town.
Go ahead. Just to come back on that, so the Section 106 requirement is for a car park management plan, so I think as part of that we can get those details from the applicant and ensure that an appropriate barrier is put out when that car park is not open. Yeah.
Councillor Khan.
Just a quick question. I wasn't sure, is the car parking not free at the multi-storey? I thought it was free.
Yes, it is free, and I don't think there's any intention to change that. There's just a 5-hour limit on parking. So I think at the moment, I don't know whether the applicant has any information. I don't think we have any information on who uses the car park. So possibly local residents may use it as parking and just leave their cars out. We simply don't know, I think. But the ANPR and the 5-hour limit will mean that people are still able to do what they want to do at the leisure park, but there is that restriction there which kind of gives the applicant or the management company some control over parking within the site. But I don't think there's any plan to introduce charging at the car park.
Okay, I'll add some comments of my own. Firstly, I am very impressed with what you've managed to produce in 2 months, given the discussion we had at our last planning committee meeting. It is very clear that you have listened and you've gone away and made meaningful change at some cost to yourselves or to the development. So I am quite impressed with that. So a couple of points I'd like to raise. One is, can you ensure that the 5-hour limit is well signposted and very clear, because councillors will all know from social media when a supermarket changes its parking restrictions, everyone then complains, I've just got a fine. We always used to be able to park in there all day and all the rest of it. Just make it really prominent that there is a change to the level of time. I am aware that parking is enforced quite stringently there anyway. So I often see complaints of, oh, I parked in the leisure park car park and I got a fine. And then someone says, well, did you go off site? And they said, yes. And they said, well, that's the reason. And that is quite commonly seen on social media. So you are good at managing the car park as it is. And with these changes, I think a lot of my concerns have been alleviated. You have increased the sustainable transport element of it, which I am happy to see. I would like to see that go further. The first, I'll quote myself from the last meeting, the cycle racks were very much a token gesture. This is a much more meaningful thing, and I hope you take the comments from the committee on going as far as you can with sustainable transport. Do I have any other comments from my colleagues? Okay, all the committee members have had the opportunity to speak, so we'll move on to the vote. The recommendation is to permit, subject to the completion of a legal agreement. As chair, I will move the recommendation. Can I ask the vice chair to second, please?
I second it.
Can I have a show of hands for all those for the recommendation? That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Application CR 2023-0242 FUL, Unit 3, Crawley Leisure Park, London Road, West Green, Crawley, has been permitted subject to the completion of the legal agreement. Thank you very much. We will now move on to agenda item 6, CR 2025-0019 ADV, Crawley Innovation Centre, Crawley Business Quarter, Northgate, Crawley. Can I ask the planning officer to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think most of you will probably know this building. This is the new Crawley Innovation Centre, and you can see some images of the building on the screen. It's a 3-storey former office building on the corner of Fleming Way and Crawley Business Quarter up in Manor Royal. The building, as you can see on the left-hand side, is a kind of L shape with a central gable entrance feature. And the application is for signage for the building. The reason it's being reported to committee is because this is a council application. So 2 freestanding signs are proposed. One is a totem sign on Fleming Way and the other is at the entrance to the car park. So actually I'll come on to show you the plans, but the entrance to the car park is just here and the totem sign would be, the smaller totem sign would be somewhere here. These photos show you the Fleming Way frontage, and the proposal for the other totem sign is that it would be somewhere around here. There are then 3 signs proposed on the building themselves. You can probably see a white kind of triangle shape there. That's where one of the signs is, and then the other 2 are either side on the wings. So I'll show you the details of the signs. That's the location plan of the site. So you can see the building down here. There's the building proposed on the entrance and the 2 smaller signs to the 2 wings. You've got the larger totem sign on the Fleming Way frontage, and then the one that effectively is the car park entrance sign just here. So this is the largest totem sign. This would be illuminated. It's 3 metres high and 1 metre wide. You can see the design there. And it does direct you across the frontage to Crawley Business Quarter, where the actual entrance to the site is. And when you get to the entrance of the site, you've got a smaller sign which is 2.5 metres high, directing you into the car park. Again, the same sort of branding. And then it's the same one, I think, isn't it? So they are the two signs that will be matched on the two wings of the building. So they're 1 metre high by 4.7 metres wide. And there you can see the actual, so that's the elevation showing the main entrance with the small sign over the door. And then finally, the elevation with the two signs on the two wings. So that's it really. The signs are all considered appropriate in terms of size and design for both the site itself and the building and the surrounding area, whereas you'll appreciate there are a number of similar signs, including totem signs, on surrounding businesses. So the recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the report.
Thank you. We don't have any speakers in regard to this item, so we move to the debate. Committee members wishing to speak, please raise your hands. Councillor Chariton.
Not allowing me. Flashing red.
Sorry.
Just thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, so I know that you've mentioned other signs in the area, but are any of these signs checked out with the Highways Authority in terms of so whether they're okay for that position on the road? Because I'm conscious of the fact that they are close to a road. It's purely a, as it were, a, how can I say, has this been checked out type question. I'm sure it has, and I'm sure it conforms, but I'd feel a bit remiss if I didn't ask the question. Thank you.
Yeah, you don't very often see signage application like this, but if you look at paragraph 5.7 in the report, that sets out some standing advice that West Sussex have issued, which we use to assess most advert applications. So it does cover things like whether the signage is within the publicly maintainable highway, whether the illumination levels are high enough, whether it's in a visibility display on the highway. None of this signage is, it's all fine, but they are kind of standard tests that we go through for for all advertisement applications really. So it is set out in the report and it has been assessed, not through, I don't think West Sussex will have been actually commented because they issue the standing advice. We would only go to them where there was a complication, but in this case it does accord with the standing advice, so we have no need to directly consult them.
Any other comment? Oh, Councillor Jaggard.
Sorry, can I ask a question? On the screen there, the sign looks purple. Well, it certainly does on that one. The signs look purple. Are they purple or are they, see, they're black, they're purple and pink. Is it black or is it blue or is it purple and pink?
Indigo, apparently, and what looks like red or pink, but that screen should be more accurate in terms of colours, I think. Is it navy blue? Yeah. There's an issue with the colour on that screen tonight. So.
Are you now disappointed, Councillor Jaggard? Do I have any other comments from colleagues? Okay, all committee members have had the opportunity to speak, so we'll move on to the vote. The recommendation is to permit consent subject to the conditions set out in the report. As Chair will move the recommendation, can I ask the Vice Chair to second, please?
It's seconded.
Can I have a show of hands for all those for the proposal? And again, we have a unanimous vote. Okay, there is no supplemental agenda. The business of the committee has concluded, so the meeting is closed at 20:10.